Lección de Gramática 17.1, el condicional. In today's lesson, we're going to be discussing the conditional tense. The conditional tense expresses what someone would do or what would happen under certain circumstances or conditions. That's why it's called the conditional tense. Additionally, this tense is often used to make polite requests and or to talk about hypothetical situations. Let's look at an example of a polite request that you might make. In English, you might ask someone, "Would you like a hamburger?" And they might respond, "Yes, I would like a hamburger, thank you very much." Or you might say, "Would you like some pancakes?" "Would you like an apple?" This is just kind of a little bit more of a polite way to ask a question rather than, "Do you want a hamburger?" "Would you like a hamburger?" See, same thing, just a little bit more polite. In Spanish, you may have heard the phrase "te gustaría," so this is how you would ask, "Would you like something?" in Spanish. ¿Te gustaría una hamburguesa? Sí, me gustaría una hamburguesa. Muchas gracias. ¿Te gustarían unos panqueques? Would you like some pancakes? You'll notice on this one, since pancakes is plural, you would use the form gustarían, because what you're literally saying is, would pancakes be pleasing to you? Yes, pancakes would be pleasing to me, thank you. ¿Te gustaría una manzana? Sí, me gustaría una manzana, por favor. Let's talk a little bit about how to conjugate verbs in the conditional tense. The formula we'll be using is the infinitive verb plus the conditional ending. These are the endings that we're going to be using. As you copy these down into your notes, you might recognize them as being very similar to the endings that we used with the imperfect tense when we were talking about things that used to happen in the past or the way things used to be or ongoing things that were happening. And you would be correct in that observation. These are the same endings. The difference is that when we were conjugating in the imperfect tense, we were taking the ending off of our infinitive verb, so taking the AR, ER, or IR ending off and replacing it with these letters. The conditional tense is different because you keep the AR, ER, or IR ending on your infinitive form, and then you're simply adding this ending. So it's in addition to the infinitive verb ending, not instead of. Here are some examples of three regular pattern verbs. We have visitar, which is an AR verb, comer, an ER verb, and aplaudir, an IR verb. As you look at this conjugation chart, notice that each of these three verbs stays in the infinitive form, and you're simply adding those new endings to the end. There are a few irregular verb stems in the conditional tense. They're going to come from these infinitive verbs: decir, hacer, poder, poner, haber, querer, saber, salir, tener, and venir. As you learned these verb stems in the future tense a few lessons back, you learned that their irregular verb stems looked like this. Well, the good news is the irregular verb stems in the conditional tense are the same irregular stems that you used in the future tense. So instead of saying, for example, I would say or I would tell, you might think it would be deciría. However, we have to use that irregular stem, dir. So I would say or I would tell would be yo diría, yo haría, yo podría, yo pondría, yo habría. You see how this works. Let's look at a few examples. We're going to use the regular AR pattern verb preguntar, a regular pattern verb ER verb leer, regular IR pattern IR verb escribir, irregular stem verb querer, another verb with an irregular stem that also happens to be reflexive, ponerse, and then we're going to use the verb haber. In our first example, using the verb preguntar, yo le preguntaría la pregunta a la maestra. So this sentence is saying, I would ask her the question, and the her in this sentence happens to be referring to the teacher. So we used the word le, which remember can mean him or her or usted. So putting the phrase a la maestra in this sentence is just clarifying who le is talking about. I would ask her the question. Using the verb leer. Los niños leerían más libros en su clase. The children would read more books in his, her, your, or their class. Using the verb escribir. ¿Escribirías una carta para mí? Would you write a letter for me? In this sentence, we know that the question is being asked to you, and this is the singular familiar you. We know that because of the ending ias is only used with the to form of the verb. Using the verb querer, nosotros queríamos ver la película. We would want to see the movie. Using the verb ponerse, ella se pondría su abrigo. She would put on her coat. And the last one, haber, our example, ellos habrían hecho sus quehaceres. They would have done their chores. This is technically its own tense where you use haber in the conditional, habría or habrían, and then you use a past participle with it. You're used to using haber in other tenses, so this is just kind of an addition of those other forms that those other words that you've formed with haber. A couple other uses of the conditional tense. We talked a little bit about how it can be used just to sound a little bit more polite. Sometimes you might use the verb poder specifically to make polite requests. For example, ¿podrías pasarme una servilleta, por favor? Could you pass me a napkin, please? ¿Podrías cerrar tu libro, por favor? Could you close your book, please? We also use the conditional tense sometimes with the imperfect tense in relation to a past action or state of being. Yo pensaba que ellos irían. I thought that they would go. Yo creía que ella diría la verdad. I believed that she would tell the truth. In these particular examples, you're using the past tense, the imperfect, and then you're using the conditional with it basically to indicate kind of like, well, I thought it would be this way, but you're insinuating that it wasn't or it didn't turn out the way you thought it would. Here's a couple of examples I'd like you to try. Either if you're doing this with a friend in class, you can orally go through these examples and practice them. If you're doing these notes on your own because you missed class, go ahead and write your answers down at the bottom of your notes page, and then I'll check them when you come back to class next time. Let me know if you have any questions.